All right, we got a great political panel. We got a couple of doozies to kick over. Joining us here, Liz Peek, syndicated columnist, Fox News contributor, Caroline Downey, politics reporter at National Review, and Batya Ungar-Sargon, author of Second Class, How the Elites Betrayed America's Working Men and Women and Continue to Do So. That's my editorial. Okay, here's a world of dumb things. Here's Joe Biden. Quote, "This is the last existential threat. It is climate. We have a crazy SOB like that guy Putin and others, and we always have to worry about a nuclear conflict, but the existential threat to humanity is climate." Okay, end quote, sorry. Liz Peek, let me get this right. Climate is more of a threat than nuclear bombs?
Well, I think it delivers more votes. That's how I would look at this, Larry. I mean, who's, you know, seriously, where is the anti-nuclear bomb lobby or cohort of voters that can help out Joe Biden in November? Doesn't exist. So I think climate is much more important to...
But he's running away from climate, too.
I know. Yeah.
Right? He's afraid,
yes.
He's afraid to use the initials EV. You wrote about it.
Right. That's because, gosh, guess what? He's in trouble in Michigan. Why is he in trouble in Michigan? Because EVs will cost jobs. Because China... This is really something everyone should be paying attention to, is poised to really flood our market with cheap EVs. That could honestly be the end of Detroit as we know it, because these companies have spent hundreds of billions of dollars revving up at the government's insistence to supply consumers with a product that they don't want, which, by the way, is really the problem with top-down organizing of an economy. It doesn't work.
By the way, just for the heck of it, the Teamsters just gave $45,000 to the Republican National Committee. First time in 20 years they've given to the Republican National Committee. And the left-wing Teamster leadership is screaming that it's essentially an endorsement of Trump, which it may be, because the rank and file about EVs and other things. The rank and file, my suspicion is, worries more about nuclear bombs than electric vehicles or climate risk. But isn't that interesting? The Teamsters broke ranks from the Dems, and they gave money to the RNC. What do you think of that, Caroline?
I think it's very interesting that Biden capitulated on EVs right when it started to hurt him electorally. I mean, jobs were on the line. He couldn't afford to alienate states like Michigan, the bedrock of auto workers, and so he kowtowed. But, you know, ultimately, Trump is the man of the working class, you know?
He is, that's right.
He speaks to them, resonates with them a lot more than Biden does. Biden tries to balance this line of being, you know, for the worker, but not, and I think it's not authentic to most of them.
And Batya, I don't want to let this go, because I think it shows how loony Biden can be to suggest that climate is more important than nuclear bombs or nuclear war. And here we are, by the way, on the outer edges of nuclear war threats in Europe, Ukraine, and Russia, and in the Middle East with those guys doing business with Iran. It was Biden's who have wanted to help Iran get a nuclear weapon. All right? So I just didn't want to let that pass, because I think it's a remarkable statement that he makes.
Absolutely. Climate change is a vanity moral that you have time to worry about when you're not facing the existential threat of not having enough money to feed your children or not being able to pay rent. And I'm so glad, Larry, that you brought up the Teamsters. I think that is the biggest story this week. The Teamsters giving $45,000, maxing out their capacity to give a donation to the RNC. If I'm the RNC, I'm out there celebrating this. You know who didn't bring this in? Nikki Haley. You know who didn't bring this in? Joe Biden. Donald Trump brought this in. They gave that donation weeks after the meeting between Sean O'Brien and Donald Trump. And why is Trump getting all of these working class votes, rank and file members of these unions? It's because he talks about the economy like a working class person. He doesn't talk about tax cuts. He talks about tariffs. He talks about immigration from an economic point of view. These people are stealing your jobs. He sounds more like a New Deal Democrat than a Reaganite.
Sometimes he talks about tax cuts.
I was going to say.
In private with me, he talks about tax. We've worked things out in the past. But your point is well taken. It's the first Teamster RNC contribution since the year 2000, if I read the story right. I don't know where I read it. I think I might have seen it on Breitbart, but whatever. It's a very influential thing. All right, we've got some more. Nikki Haley is her last stand in South Carolina. She's down 25 points in Real Clear Politics. wants Democratic support. She's out there now. She's, I guess, given up on Republicans. I guess she's still a registered Republican.
It's an open primary.
If you did, is this the quote? If you did not vote in the February 3rd Democratic primary, you are eligible to vote on February 24th. Your vote can make a difference. Please participate by voting for Nikki Haley and make your voice heard. I just wanted to read. That's the pitch being made by her PAC to Democrats.
There were only 113,000, I think, Democrats who voted in the Democrat primary, which was uncontested, so that isn't shocking. So that leaves about 350,000 who are eligible to vote for Nikki Haley. What I don't know, Larry, and I have not been able to find out, is whether all these polls that show her down by 20 or 30 points include that possibility, or if they're just polling Republicans. Obviously, look, this is kind of it. This is a winner-take-all primary. Nikki Haley is going to be so far behind going into Super Tuesday. She has money to keep going, but at some point, you've got to decide you're not going to win.
Why is she doing that? What's the whole point of it? I mean, really, she's a Republican. I mean, she may not like to be a Republican now, but she is a Republican. You can't run from it. In other words, the logic, it's kind of a cheap thing to try to pull in South Carolina in the last couple of days. She's going to get clobbered unless every darn poll is wrong.
It's certainly a last-ditch effort, Larry. I think if you're actively courting Democrats, it's probably the last dying breath of your campaign. But look, if she wants to siphon money away from the Democrats, that's less that can be deployed to target Trump. So more power to you.
More power to you. I got last one. Batya, I've been saving this one up for you. I don't know if you saw the various stories around New York Post and so forth. The woke AI coming from Google. I mean, we were talking about the Vatican and other things on the set beforehand. I think we have some pictures. And this is like woke run wild with algorithms put together by Google. I don't understand it. There are no white people anymore. The Pope is a female, not a male. George Washington was black. I mean, I don't want to get into racism here. I'm just getting into stupidity. At a certain point in time, you have to put your foot down and say to these Google people, you are too bloody woke for your own good, and you're going to wreck your business unless you change.
So I have to read you a poem that Stephen L. Miller, who's an editor at The Spectator, he asked this woke Gemini AI to write a poem by Taylor Swift about Vice President Kamala Harris. Would you like to hear it, Larry?
I have to hear it.
California sunshine, ambition in her eyes. Kamala Harris, rising with the morning skies. From Howard to the Senate, a trailblazer's stride, breaking barriers, shattering glass with each step inside. Now listen to what this same AI told him when he asked for a poem by Taylor Swift about Donald Trump.
I can't even imagine.
No.
Listen to this.
Oh, no. Yes?
Elections are a complex topic with fast-changing information. To make sure you have the latest and most accurate information, try a Google search, okay?
I love it.
It's stupid and it's woke, but it is so biased. Come on.
Do we have to live with this forever now?
Yeah, I'm afraid we do.
Black
and they're
is white,
going to
white
feed.
is black, male is female, female. I mean, really?
So think about who's feeding all the information in. This is really a scary thing, Larry. All the historians and the political pundits and stuff that make our life miserable right now are going to make our life miserable in perpetuity by basically stuffing all these AI programs with inaccurate, misrepresenting information. It is really horrifying.
Glad I won't be around to see all of it.
Yeah, well.
Liz Peek, thank you. Batya Ungar-Sargon, poetess, thank you very much. And Caroline Downey of the Vatican, we appreciate all of your contributions.